Hey, what's up, Vox and Hops heads? I'm Matt, the vocals of Cryptopsy, and you're listening to my podcast, Vox and Hops, where I sit down with fellow metal musicians to talk about their lives, music, and craft beer. Devastation on the Nation starts next week on Thursday in Berkeley, California. Trust me, this year's lineup is absolutely insane. It's featuring Rotting Christ, Borknagar, Wolfheart, Abigail Williams, and Imperial Triumphant, and this is a tour that you do not want to miss. 3 of these shows have already sold out. More of them have low ticket warnings. Trust me, you must pick up your tickets if you want to go to the show. If not, you're going to be disappointed. The best way to do that is via the link in the description of this podcast, or you can simply go to metalfestivaltours.com. Devastation on the Nation 2020 is proudly brought to you by Metal Festival Tours, Continental Touring, and the Vox and Hops podcast. The very first Vox and Hops Devastation on the Nation craft beer party is happening also next week on March 21st in Vancouver, BC. It is a pre-show party happening at Jackalob's Neighborhood Dive. You come out there between 4 and 7, and you drink some craft beers alongside other Vox and Hops heads. Some of the Devastation on the Nation crew members and band members are going to be there. Come out and drink some craft beer. Get properly prepared for Devastation on the Nation 2020, which is happening at the Rickshaw Theater that night. Super stoked about this event. Much love and respect to everyone that helped me put it together, notably Kevin Ems, Ash Pearson, and the great people from Jackalob's Neighborhood Dive. Much love and respect. Sadly, I won't be there, but I will be here in Montreal celebrating alongside you craft beer style. Much love and respect. Super stoked to announce, to coincide with the fact that Cryptopsy is playing the Manitoba Metal Fest, I will be out there early for the Manitoba Metal Fest pre-fest party. And for that event, which is happening at Sucrum's Brewing Company, I will be doing a live Vox and Hops interview with the one, the only, Samus Policelli. Super stoked about that. That's right, 66 Samus, the YouTube star, is out there in Winnipeg, and I'm going to sit down with him in front of a live audience at Sucrum's Brewing Company, and I'm going to interview him while we drink some craft beer. I'm super stoked. This is happening on Thursday, April 16th. It starts at 7 p.m. The interview's at 8 p.m. I'm so stoked to see you all there. Come out and party. Get ready for the Manitoba Metal Fest, craft beer style.
So this is Frederick from Cult of Luna, and you're listening to Vox and Hops.
That's right, Frederick. Much, much love to Frederick from Cult of Luna. I had such a great time at that show the other night. I'm such a huge fan of Cult of Luna, and this was one for the books, so much love and respect to Frederick and the rest of the Cult of Luna crew. On today's episode, I'm with Sacha Dunable of Intronaut. Here it is, Vox and Hops, episode number 117.
I warn you, what you are about to hear is very disturbing indeed.
Hey, what's up, everybody? Today I'm with Sacha Dunable from Intronaut, and you just slayed the Corona Theater. I'm so stoked to be with you.
Yeah,
How
man.
are you?
I'm great. Great to meet you and stuff.
How did it feel, the show tonight, opening up a tour? That must be weird, because you guys are, in my eyes, a headlining band.
Well, yeah, I mean, I feel like if it was a different tour, we wouldn't necessarily be into a first of 3 position, but you know, the Cult of Luna guys I've known for a long time. We toured with them years ago, and Emma we're big fans of, and I thought it was just a cool, like, package of music to where it made sense, you know, and we have a new album out, so I think it's just a cool tour to be a part of, and yeah, so I think it's playing first has its advantages too, you know.
We get to do this.
Yeah, exactly. Like, you play and then you get to just hang with everybody, you know.
Yeah, none of that late night loadouts.
Exactly.
And everybody's gone.
Yeah.
Everyone's like, oh, you have fun? You partied after? I was like, no, I loaded out and went to a bar where everyone was gone. And then went to bed.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, for sure.
Classic Vox and Hops question at this point. Take me back to your youth. You're growing up in your house. What music was playing when you weren't in control of it?
That's an interesting question. I'll have to think. I grew up... Okay, so I had 2 different households. There was my dad's place and then my mom and my stepdad's place. Mom and stepdad being more like 80s yuppies. I was born in 81. So, like, just imagine, like, 1986, what's playing in a Los Angeles house. It was, like, Rod Stewart, you know, Michael Jackson, just, like, pop music from the day. But then my dad was more of a rocker. There was some Hendrix. There was some Skynyrd, Creedence, a lot of Creedence, Rolling Stones. You know, just classic rock, you know. That kind of stuff.
Do you remember your first concert experience when you went to go see a show?
I can't remember exactly which one was first. It was either my dad's best friend took me to see Rolling Stones on the Voodoo Lounge tour and Seal open, or it might have been my mom who took me to see Chuck Berry and Little Richard at the Greek Theater in LA. I can't remember which one happened first.
There's some perks.
Yeah.
Growing up in LA.
Totally.
All the classic tours come through there.
Yeah. First show I ever saw on my own that I like wanted to go to, and my mom bought me tickets for, was Tom Petty Wildflowers at the Hollywood Bowl. And it was the first time I smelled marijuana in there. I was like in 7th, I think, or maybe I had just finished 8th grade or something like that. Yeah.
And that's when everything turned.
Yeah, and it was a great show, honestly. Well,
Tom Petty, you can't go wrong.
Dude, and that record, he had it was a Tom Petty solo record technically, but he had the Heartbreakers all there with him, and it was a great show.
He's such a hit machine.
Yeah, for sure.
The amount of hits that guy wrote.
Dude, Petty's just, doesn't get any better. Yeah.
Where did you get into your music? What would be that first band that was your band?
I feel like, okay, so I was born in 81, so like 9 years old, it's 1990, so you have Guns N' Roses, like Appetite was still like a current album. I guess like album cycles were longer then or whatever, but yeah, like Appetite for Destruction, Dr. Feelgood, Skid Row, both Slave to the Grind and self-titled, Poison. I'm like a little more ashamed of that one now.
An MTV kid, basically.
Basically, yeah, MTV in 1990. That was like my Bible for sure.
Crazy.
And so then obviously that led to like Metallica Black Album came out right around then too. Yeah, I mean that's what really got. Those were the first like tapes that I bought, back then. Yeah.
At what point did you start believing that you would be up on stage?
I knew it right then. I was like, I want a red BC Rich Warlock, just like Mick Mars. Like I wanted like red leather pants. I was like, this is all I want. So I had to. I started obviously, parents that are just like, okay, whatever, you psychopath. Like we'll get you like a classical guitar.
Really?
And you have to like take lessons.
Prove it to us.
Yeah. And so yeah, the first like rental classical nylon string guitar led to a cheap steel string acoustic, and then my dad, who is like Mr. Cool, took me to a pawn shop like about a year later and bought me a Squier Bullet that was like made in Korea or Japan. It was my first electric with like a little Fender practice amp, and that's really when it all just went downhill.
This was just you in your room, or were you already jamming with people?
Yeah, no, there was a few years. I mean, I was taking lessons and jamming in my room. My dad, I could tell and my mom too, honestly, they both like realized that I was like super into this stuff, so they would show me like classic rock records. My dad bought me Led Zeppelin 4. He was like, you should learn Stairway to Heaven. He like made sure I learned how to play Stairway to Heaven. He was he played like piano and organ, a little bit of guitar. He had like an organ repair business back then or whatever, so we would play like Stairway, and he'd do like the flute parts on the...
Oh, that's badass.
Yeah, it was a good introduction, and then started jamming with people around 8th grade. I was getting more into like punk rock. We'd do like Ramones songs and stuff like that, and eventually you get better and you start...
Well, it's something that everyone can play.
Exactly.
Is also it too.
Yeah, we're just like trying to like keep on the beat with each other.
Let's finish a song.
Yeah. Like you could do a 2-minute Ramones song, like we're like stoked. Yeah, for sure.
Vox&Hops is all about hanging out with metal musicians, talking about their lives, music, and craft beer. Today I brought for us to drink Boréale's brand new Tropic Nord. This is a New England IPA.
All right.
It is 6.5%. It's a little bit light. The artwork is a little bit psychedelic, so when I went to the store today, I was like, I think I'm going to bring it for Sacha for
cool.
the new Intronaut record there.
I like an IPA too. I like a lighter IPA for sure.
Good. So let's talk about that. Are you a craft beer enthusiast?
I'm not like a maniac about it, but I do appreciate good beer for sure. I'm not quite the collector, as it were, but we played like the Decibel Metal Beer Fest, and I got to like sample a bunch of cool breweries a few months ago, and I definitely appreciate good beer.
As soon as I saw that you played that fest, I was like, I'm asking him to do an interview.
Yeah.
I'm asking him to do a cheers. So
yeah, cheers, bud.
Yeah, it smells tropical.
Yeah, it's like fruity for an IPA.
Fruity, like mango-y.
Yeah, mango, peach, kind of definitely tropical. You could put a little umbrella on this, and it would be.
Yeah, and it's
not out of
cool.
place.
I love this whole New England and hazy craze. Everyone knows that. Listening to this, I talk about it a lot.
Yeah.
Absolutely delicious. Boreale is actually a very big brewery up here, and they started doing this artisan line where they just make more experimental beers, more trendy beers, and they've been killing it. So huge shout out to Boreale.
Yeah, this is great. Yeah, definitely.
I as soon as I saw you were playing the Decibel Metal and Beer Fest.
Yeah.
And my brother, my Vox&Hops alumni, Ash Pearson, played drums for you guys.
Yeah.
So let's touch on that. How did that work out? How did he end up playing drums for you for that one show?
So we had Alex Rudinger play on the record, and he originally was going to try and play as many shows as he could. He's also in Whitechapel, so he's like super busy with that. But he was like, I'll do that show, and then I'll do this Cult of Luna tour. But then Whitechapel added all these dates kind of last minute, and he's like, so I can't do it. And Ash is an old friend. I mean, all the Revocation guys are like, our brothers. Like Brett Bamberger has been my buddy forever. Dave and Dan for sure. But I was just kind of talking to Ash about it, and I hit him up. I was like, do you know anybody who could like help us out for like this show and some tours? And he's like, I don't know about those like tours you got, but like I'll do that show.
He loves craft beer too, so.
Oh yeah, dude, Ash is a gem of a human. I really love him very much. And so I was like, well, this is a good opportunity for me to I'll come up there. I went up to Vancouver and hung out with him for a few days, and we jammed and just hung out, and then he came down and hang out with us. And so we just did that show with him. Obviously, he's busy with his real band, so he couldn't do more than that, but that's how that happened, basically.
Huge shout out to Ash.
Ash Pearson.
Much love. I've known him for years and years.
Just a diamond human right there. He's really great.
Take me back to that experience of playing the Metal and Beer Fest. It's something that I would love to do. I haven't been to it. What is it like?
You got to do it. It was cool, man. It's not like a huge festival. I mean, it's just, I think that Albert at Decibel just gets all of his like favorite bands that are available to come out and play the show. So we did the Observatory in Orange County, which I'm sure you've played before.
Yeah, great venue.
Yeah, great venue. And so they have one whole room with probably maybe not 20 breweries, but probably 15 or so like craft breweries that show up with a bunch of stuff. And there's just all this cool stuff to taste. And our manager actually works with, I believe it's Three Weavers. I hope I'm not messing that up. But he collaborated on them with a beer called Blood Junkie, which was like it's literally red and like a real heavy beer. And I'm showing how much of a beer nerd I'm not right now.
No, but there's so many styles now. That's why it could either be a sour or it could be a boozy one.
No, it was heavy. It was like a lot of percent. Quite
it was
busy.
a lot of percent.
And quite bitter, but a delicious beer. But yeah, all those breweries that were there, all real cool guys and girls, and all had really good stuff, and they're all like into metal. It's just a fun party, basically.
There's such a crossover between, I say it all the time on the podcast, between craft beer and metal. So
yeah.
it's baffled me that it's taken this long for there to be these metal and beer fests.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I compare it to like the same way that like I would get into like music gear, like pedals and guitars and amps and stuff. Some people aren't into that, but they can kind of nerd out on this beer. And obviously beer and metal do go hand in hand. Historically,
Why do you think that is?
I just think back to like, I wasn't at an Exodus show in 1983, but I can only imagine that everybody was drinking the shit out of some beer. So,
and creating the first mosh pits.
Yeah, just moshing and headbanging. If you're not drunk, I don't know like what you're like how that happens.
Yeah. Let's touch on what you mentioned about gear. I noticed that your merch booth that you guys are selling some gear. Some pedals. What is that? Let's talk about that.
My company, Dunable Guitars, we do dabble with pedals. And I have a friend in New Jersey who has a company called S&K Pedals. And he makes all these great distortion pedals. He'll kind of do like themed runs of stuff where he'll like clone the preamp from like some weird kind of not obscure, but just kind of like esoteric, like solid state head from the 70s or something like that. Mm-hmm. And I was like, can you do one that is kind of like this like high gain British style preamp like that we used on the album? And so he did that, and then we put the album art on it. And I mean, in my opinion, that's like one of the coolest pieces of gear you can, or merch and gear you could get, really, where it's like
it's totally unique, and there's probably
it's based
not that many
on
of
the
them.
album guitar tone, so we made like 25 of them, and we got a few left, so we brought them out on tour.
It's badass.
Yeah.
Let's talk about Dunable Guitars. How did this all come together? Before we started recording, you mentioned that you worked at Century Media for 6 years, so you seem to have like a big breadth of work experience.
Yeah.
At what point did you go from that first Squire to wanting to build your own guitar?
Well, to the Century Media thing, so I graduated high school in 1999, and my first like real job out of high school was working in the Century Media warehouse.
Really? Is it another perk being in, coming from LA? Yeah.
I mean, just growing up in the metal scene in LA, like I had older friends that worked there, and they're like, "Oh, you need a job? Like, do you want to like pack mail order seat?" I mean, they have a huge distro, Century Media, or they did back then,
with physical copies.
Yeah. So my job for many, many years was packing up CDs and vinyl and just shipping them to mail order customers at Century Media. Yeah. And once Intronaut started touring in 2006, they had to let me go.
You think they'd be understanding?
They tried to be for a while. I really appreciate everybody that worked there at that time that tried to make it happen. But so after that, I started work. I was like, what do I do now? Like, I was like on tour, and I all of a sudden didn't have a job. And it was also during that. I mean, there was a huge recession in like 2007, 2008.
That's correct.
And we were touring a bunch then, and it was the kind of thing where I was like, okay, I'll like work in restaurants. So I was trying to be a waiter, but then like you'd leave to go on tour.
There goes that job.
And then you come back, and it takes 4 months to find another one because everything's so in demand,
Mm-hmm.
And I did that for a few years, just really struggling because LA's not a cheap place to live. And if you don't have a steady job or income, and at that time, Intronaut wasn't making any money at all.
Just
not that we do now.
One hand
exactly.
into another hand.
I mean, like literally, like eating like dollar store like cans of beans. You know what I mean? Like on a like 99-cent a day budget.
That was your buyout, yeah.
So I started like hanging out with a guy who worked in a repair shop in LA, a guitar repair shop. And started to see how that could possibly be a career path. So I started doing like guitar repair stuff, guitar tech stuff. I mean,
did you have that in mind? You would like go on tour with people, just constantly be on tour?
Yeah, I was like, whatever work I can get. At first I started working in a couple guitar stores as like the in-store repair person. Dude. Yeah. And I would tour with some people. Like I toured with Cynic as a guitar tech.
Cool.
I did a couple of those Death to All tours. Some pop stuff. I did a lot of like in town, like studio stuff. Like the guy who records Intronaut, he's tracked every single one of our records pretty much since Prehistoricisms. He was also Linkin Park's staff engineer, and they're just always in the studio, or they were. And so he would just be like, "Do you want to come here every 2 weeks and just tune our guitars?" And it was the best gig ever because I would go there for 2 days a month basically and just tune their 50 guitars up or whatever, and just like send an invoice to their management. I'd be like, "How much money can I send? How much can I make this out to or for?" And I mean, that was like paying my rent for sure.
Wow.
For a while.
Yeah.
Really cool.
Right place,
honestly,
right time. Right?
Yeah. Stuff like that. I worked with like Dino from Fear Factory, a couple like producers, Logan Mader, and just guys like that. And at the same time was trying to like build up tools to like sort of learn how to build guitars. And
you were always a tinkerer before that?
Well, I was tinkering while learning all this repair stuff. That was sort of like, I mean, I was into tinkering, and I kind of come from a family of tinkerers. My dad
take apart your toaster when you were young. Or?
Yeah, my dad was a guy that would never call people to like fix stuff. So I was always like, when there was a problem with my guitar, I would like take it apart and like figure out how to fix it.
This is almost like early internet. It's not like today where
Oh no, there was no YouTube.
There's
maybe a little bit,
but not like today.
Yeah,
where there's 900 million channels.
Yeah.
Demos.
I mean, I had a lot of people to bounce stuff off of, and I mean, LA, there's tons of people that can teach you stuff, you know. So I would just like walk into like repair shops here and there and just like ask them stuff. I ended up working at Guitar Center for 4 years as the in-house repair guy at a store in Sherman Oaks, California. But yeah, all the while kind of like learning how to build stuff in my garage. I moved into a house so I could convert the garage to a wood shop. And then we went on tour, or we were going to go on tour after our album Habitual Levitations, and I just like made a couple guitars for me and Dave. And then it was just, I mean, honestly, from that, it really just took off, like, because the other bands on the tours would be like, what guitar is that? And I'd be like, I made that. And they'd be like, can you make me a guitar? And then
it just grew, organically growing, which is amazing.
Yeah, and then after 10 years of touring with a bunch of bands, all these guys are like, you're making guitars now? Like, make me one, you know? And then it just kind of grew that way organically. And people see them playing the guitars, so people put in orders. And yeah, we're working on our first PO for Guitar Center right now. As of later in March, we're going to be in 10 stores in
Good for
the
you.
US. Yeah. So it's
before that, it was just all directly through the website, or people would have to like order or through you.
Yeah, or we had a few boutique stores. We still do have a few boutique stores throughout like US, Canada, Europe.
How do you scale it to keep the quality where it was?
Well, we do work with we outsourced the neck production, and for the Guitar Center stuff, we're outsourcing the body production to a guy named Grover Jackson, who started Jackson Guitars back in the day. He like made the Randy Rhoads V.
Okay.
I think he sold the company in the early 90s or something, but he still has a shop down in Orange County, California, and he's been making our necks for a long time on his CNC machine. He has one of those, like, it looks like a submarine. You put a tree into it and the guitar comes out or whatever, you know? But
something you can only imagine.
Yeah, so we're working with him, and for the Guitar Center stuff, because it's such big quantities, you know, everything we do in our shop is handmade, so, but we still paint them in our shop, set them up for the Guitar Center stuff. But yeah, that's...
Do you remember that first one that you made that you played and you were like, this is good?
Yeah, no, I still have it. It'll be in my man cave one day. My little...
Just hang it up somewhere.
Rock and roll museum in my basement one day. Yeah.
Let's talk about the LA scene. I've interviewed other people and spoken about this. Montreal is such a tight-knit community. All the musicians, we all know each other. We all see each other at shows. We all grew up going to shows at the Medley. I see LA as being different because everyone is sort of there trying to make it. I don't know if it's different with people that like grew up there versus people showing up earlier, like later in their career, trying to make it. How was your experience, you know, forming a band, getting signed? Was it easier because you were in LA, or was it, do you think, like...
Probably, yeah. I mean, it's hard to say, you know, because you're right. Like, I love that about Montreal. It's like all these, like, we look at it as like death metal legends. You know, you have like you and like Luke LeMay and like DeSalvo.
They're all here tonight.
Yeah. And like, I mean, we had like Steve Hurdle, like we hit him up and he played on one of our records and he was like, yeah, I'm totally down. I like Intronaut. We're like, what? You know? He's probably just like some guy.
And Voivod too.
Yeah, the Voivod guys. I mean, there's just so many cool bands from here that we looked up to in like high school and whatever. But LA is such a huge city that's spread out. I mean, to drive from one end to the other, you know, just the city, not to mention the county or the neighboring counties. I mean, you're talking about hundreds of miles, you know. And so nobody really... I don't know. I mean, what's a band from LA? I can't even like think of...
There's Abysmal Dawn, and I just know that because I toured with them.
That doesn't count because Charles and I used to be roommates. So
no way, really?
Oh yeah, I've known
That's
Charles.
So funny.
I mean, again, from like local death metal stuff from the '90s, you know,
Century Media back in the day.
And we were roommates.
Shout out to Charles. I love
Charles.
Love your brother.
I love him too. That's one of my favorite people ever. Aside from Abysmal Dawn, I actually recorded their first demo.
No way.
On a Tascam like 8-track thing or whatever.
It's a small world.
We did 3
as
three
big
songs
as this
in their
world
garage.
Is.
Yeah.
So small.
But aside from them, I feel like At least these days, I can't. I mean, there are cool bands in LA that I know, but it's like not a scene that like Intronaut still plays shows with necessarily.
It'd be hard for you to throw together like a hometown gig.
It would, yeah. It's like
with a proper lineup.
Yeah, I guess I could if I really tried, but it's just not something I'm like super involved in anymore, I guess, you know? And yeah, there are people that move there to like become musicians, but that's never really been the scene that I've been a part of. I mean, for me, it was all my music friends in LA are the people that I knew like in high school or
you went to shows with, you discovered metal with.
And you would like put together shows. Like Charles is one of those guys, you know, like where we would like play the same shows, you know, in like some East LA backyard or whatever. I don't know. Those are the people that I'm still in touch with. And to me, that's still the scene, even though it's probably not a scene because all those people are old as shit. So I don't know.
Let's touch on playing as a three-piece. Yeah. What's the story? You mentioned it briefly on stage that your bassist has injured himself.
Yeah.
What is the story with that?
No, he twisted his ankle or his foot or his whole leg or whatever in the first night of this tour in Dallas. I wasn't there, so I don't know exactly what happened, but I think he stepped in like a crack in some like uneven cracked pavement or something like that, and it was dark, so he didn't see what he was doing, and he ruptured his Achilles tendon.
Holy shit. Okay, so it's a
which
real
is
deal.
Like a serious injury. Yeah, so that night we kind of just like drank and just like sort of like tried to ignore it, you know, and the next morning
he was going to
like,
stay on?
Yeah, and the next morning he was like, I think this is a problem. So we took him to an urgent care in Austin the next day, and they're like, this is probably what happened. And so they put him in a boot cast thing, and he played the show sitting down that night, but he was like, I'm going to make an appointment for the morning, and he had emergency surgery.
Holy shit.
Flew home, yeah. And luckily we have this computer set up now with the click and the video, so we were able to put his bass tracks in it, which is a little weird. It's not ideal, honestly. Like, it's the, you know, Joe and I are like the two original Intronaut guys at this point, so it's like kind of weird to be touring with it's like almost a completely different crew. I mean, besides Dave, obviously, but it's odd to play without a bass player for sure.
And it's also strange, like when you're touring, you're used to being around. There's like a certain dynamic within a band,
definitely.
And I don't know what role he fills, but to have that void be there must be strange.
It's different. It just feels like quieter in like not a good way, you know what I mean? Like you just don't have your same like rhythm of comedy, you know, and conversation for sure, you know.
Yeah, I remember that first tour that Ollie wasn't there, and we had Dom Grimard. Shout out to Dom, I love you. But I just kept like turning around looking for Ollie, and I was like, oh yeah, no, you're right, yeah. You get used to it, but it's a strange feeling.
Yeah. No, I definitely miss him. We all miss him. I mean, he's, you know, a key member of this band, and we wouldn't do it if it wasn't it would be a financial hardship to like quit the tour. It's like we have, I mean, especially for a crew, it's like these guys are like depending on doing this tour to make their money this month, you know. So yeah, he was not happy about having to leave the tour, and we weren't happy about it either, but you know, we just kept going anyway. So yeah,
you gotta hammer on.
Yeah, huge
shout out to Joe. Recuperate quickly. We're all thinking about you, and your boys are out here holding it down.
Definitely. I miss him terribly, honestly. Yeah. We've all been playing music. Joe, Dave, me, and even our old drummer Danny, we've been playing music since we were like 16, 15 years old, you know, so it's weird to not have your part of your like musical DNA there on stage with you. It's weird.
Did he play with Secret Chiefs?
Yeah, he's like...
I saw that show here, and it wasn't in Montreal, it was up north.
Wasn't it so good?
It was amazing.
They played up north where? Like
in St. Therese.
Wow.
In a tiny little bar. It was insane.
I saw the show in LA. It was so good. I mean, and it was so crazy that he got the gig. It's like his favorite band.
Really? Cool.
And I got to see them in LA, and it was like... They played like heavier songs. Very good.
Weird tritone guitar.
Yeah, I made one of those guitars for Jason, the other guitar player.
Really?
A microtonal.
Microtone.
Yeah. And Trey, obviously, is a musical legend.
Absolutely.
I mean, Bungle and all that stuff. So
huge fan.
Yeah. No, it was really cool to just sort of like for me at least, sort of on the on the sidelines, sort of be involved. But to see Joe playing with them was like a big deal. Like we've been listening to that band for a long time. Yeah.
If you could travel back in time, relive one tour, what tour would that be? Because you had so much fun, because it was special.
We've done a lot of great tours, honestly, Intronaut. Most of them like opening for cool bands, we did a tour with Mastodon in Kailasa in like 2009. That was like super fun for the time. Although, I don't know, it was one of those ones where you just like don't get any sleep,
Driving yourselves.
Yeah, you were like in just like a van and you're just drinking and you're having all the fun, but it's
suffering.
A mess. Like I feel like I would like sleep on like sidewalks. I could never do it again, but it was a lot of fun at the time. But I think like the one I would want to do over and over again, and if they're listening, listen up. But Meshuggah, we got to tour with. It was Meshuggah, Animals as Leaders, Intronaut in 2013, and actually, Jens, their singer, didn't. He got sick and didn't sing for the first 5 shows. So they like came up to us. We didn't like really know them yet, but they're like, their tour manager comes up to me the second day of the tour and he's like, "Can you sing for Meshuggah?" And I was like, "Yeah."
Excuse me, what?
Yeah. And then like 5 minutes later, I'm like, "Wait,
what did I just agree to?"
Yes. So I got to sing a couple songs with them for like 5 shows.
Which songs? I'm a huge fan.
New Millennium Cyanide Christ was the one that I did every night.
That's so good.
And I kept trying to get more and more songs, but I would practice like I think there were songs from that Kolos record that were like current at the time. And then what's the one Straws Pulled at Random?
That's right. Yeah.
It's like one of my favorite Meshuggah songs, but like I would get up at soundcheck and like try to do it with them, and it was very hard to do. So I ended up just doing New Millennium Cyanide Christ for most of the shows, which is great in itself,
I watched you guys tonight, obviously. I've been listening to the record. I love that you guys write complicated music, but you make it sound straight.
Yeah.
You make it sound square. How much of a struggle is it to do that?
I mean, honestly, that's what I like about... I mean, there's a ton of bands that have done that, and that's sort of like what I'm inspired by as far as like progressive music.
Like the Police, like...
Well, the Police, I was about to just say the Police are exactly that. Even Yes, on certain albums are that to me, like Fragile or Close to the Edge, like... Maybe they don't sound simple to the common listener or whatever, but
it has like a flow that you can follow, even though it's completely nonsense that's happening.
Exactly, but there's still like this catchy kind of like hooks that you can kind of like
which I think you guys have just totally the new record for sure too.
Thanks. Yeah, those are my biggest like influences songwriting wise, like Police, Yes. I don't know. There's probably tons more that I'm just forgetting right now, but yeah, that's funny that you picked up on that. Yeah, that's cool.
Sasha, thank you so much.
Yeah, man.
Drinking a beer with me.
Yeah.
Cheers to this new record. Keep pushing it.
Yeah.
Keep touring it. I'm stoked.
Thanks, man. It's a good beer.
Hey, thank you so much for listening right to the end. I had such a great time with Sasha. I could probably count on one hand the amount of times that I started listening to a record because it was just released, and then I saw the band just a few days later. I remember back in the day with that first Slipknot album, I picked it up, and then I immediately went to go see them probably 3 or 4 days later. But that just happened with Intronaut when they came through Montreal alongside Emma Ruth Rundle and Cult of Luna. And it was an excellent experience. It's very interesting to get to know an album and then to immediately see it live. I really enjoyed it. I really enjoyed my chat with Sasha. Such a cool guy. Super fun, down to earth. Much love and respect to Sasha and the rest of the Intronaut crew. I am super stoked about this new record, and everyone should go check it out if they have not already done that. As always, the best way to support the Vox&Hops podcast is via the Vox&Hops Big Cartel page. Anything that I receive up there is greatly, greatly appreciated, and there would be no Vox&Hops podcast if it wasn't for all of you. I hope you guys have a great weekend, and I hope that you have a great week after that. But most importantly, remember to enjoy life, metal, and craft beer. Cheers, Vox&Hops heads.